Good morning, civic students. I'm going to read this article to you in case you don't know what some of the words mean. So please follow along, and if you need to pause because I am reading too fast, feel free. Big Brother comes to China. In the Chinese city of Zhengzhou, a police officer wearing a facial recognition glasses spotted a heroin smuggler at a train station. In the city of Qingdao, cameras powered by artificial intelligence helped the police snatch 24 criminal suspects at a big annual festival. In Wuhu, a fugitive murder suspect was identified by a camera as he bought food from a street vendor. China is building a high-tech China is building a high-tech authoritarian future. This network includes millions of cameras and billions of lines of computer code. The country is embracing technologies like facial recognition and artificial intelligence to build a huge national surveillance system. It'll be used to keep tabs on its 1.4 billion people. Right now, China is in the midst of building the most far-reaching and sophisticated surveillance state in the world, and it's all enabled by technology, says Sam Sachs of the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, D.C. For a long time, technology has been considered a powerful force for spreading democracy. The idea was that increased access to technology would bring people, especially those in repressive countries like China — repressive means where people don't have a lot of rights — more freedom by connecting them to the broader world. But the reverse has happened in China. There, technology has given the government more control. In some cities, cameras scan train stations for China's most wanted. Billboard-sized displays show the names and faces of the jaywalkers. They also list the names of people who don't pay their debts. So debt is money or something that they owe. Facial recognition scanners guard the entrances to housing complexes. Already, China has an estimated 200 million surveillance cameras. That's 4 times as many as the United States. Some parts of China are further along than others in their use of new technologies, but the gaps may not matter. Chinese authorities are taking up their surveillance projects, and even the possibility that the government may be watching is often enough to keep citizens in line. 300 million cameras by 2020. Critics liken the government monitoring to the Big Brother state in George Orwell's famous dystopian novel 1984. And the surveillance system is already revolutionizing life in China. Consider what happened recently in Xinjiang. It's a mid-sized city about 700 miles west of Shanghai. The intersection south of the Changhong Bridge used to be a nightmare. Cars zoomed through and jaywalkers darted in the street. Then, in summer 2017, the police installed cameras linked to the facial recognition technology. They also put up a big outdoor screen. Photos of lawbreakers were displayed alongside their names and government ID numbers. If you are captured by the system and you don't see it, your neighbors or colleagues will. They will gossip about it, says Guan Yu, a government spokeswoman. That's too embarrassing for people to take. There have been moves to use this kind. There have been moves to use this kind of technology to watch students in classrooms. One high school in the city of Hangzhou, south of Shanghai, uses cameras to scan students' faces every 30 seconds. Facial recognition software and AI, or artificial intelligence, analyze the images. The technology determines whether the students are paying attention and assesses their mood. China's surveillance system are part of a larger trend toward more government control. The man behind that trend is Chinese President Xi Jinping. Xi is China's most powerful leader in decades. The recent elimination of term limits means he could remain president indefinitely. That means for as long as he wants. Since taking office in 2012, Xi has tightened up his grip on China's massive military. He used an anti-corruption campaign to purge Chinese officials he considers disloyal. Xi's government has also intensified online censorship, including bans on U.S. companies like Google and Twitter, and carried out a broad internet crackdown. To consolidate control, Xi has launched a major upgrade of China's surveillance state. China has become the world's biggest market for security and surveillance technology. Analysts estimate the country will have almost 300 million cameras installed by 2020. China's police are expected to spend an additional $30 billion in the coming years on techno-enabled snooping. Human rights groups find this trend deeply troubling since it gives the government powerful new tools to track its critics. Tracking faces, clothing, and more, judging Chinese public reaction can be difficult in a country where the media is controlled by the government. But many Chinese so far don't seem concerned about being constantly watched. In fact, some cheer on new attempts at law and order, such as the efforts to publicize jaywalkers in Xinjiang. It's one of the biggest intersections in the city, says Wang Fukang, a college student who volunteered as a guard at the crosswalk there. It's important that it stays safe and orderly. This appears to be just the beginning. The government is funding research and development into technologies that track faces, clothing, and even how a person walks. With all that spending, a new generation of Chinese startups has emerged to meet the demand. And many of China's high-tech security companies are providing their data to the government. Zhen Xinyang, chief technology officer at a startup called iCool, says his company has surveillance systems at more than 20 Chinese airports and train stations. These systems have helped catch 1,000 criminals. iCool, he says, is also handling over 2 million facial images each day to a new big data police system called Skynet. At a building complex in Xinjiang, a facial recognition system set up to let residents pass quickly through security gates adds to the police's collection of photos of local residents, according to local Chinese Communist Party officials. Wen Yang, an executive at Number One Community, which makes the product, said the company is at work on other applications. One would detect when crowds of people are clashing. Another would allow police to use virtual maps of buildings to find out who lives there. Catching a smuggler. Despite the vast and growing capabilities of Chinese surveillance, large gaps remain. The facial recognition system remains more of a digital patchwork than an all-seeing technological network. Many files still aren't digitized. Others are on mismatched spreadsheets that can be easily compared. Police hope that AI or artificial intelligence will someday power their systems. For now, teams of people sort through the photos and the data the old-fashioned way. But Chinese authorities, who are generally tight-lipped about security measures, have embarked on a public relations campaign to persuade the Chinese people that the high-tech security state is already fully in place. Many people seem convinced. At the intersection in Xinjiang, jaywalking has decreased. At a building complex in Xinjiang, where a facial recognition gate system has been installed, a problem with bike theft ceased entirely, according to building management. The whole point is that people don't know if they're being monitored, and that uncertainty makes people more obedient, says Martin Trezempa, a Chinese expert at the Peterson Institute for International Economics in Washington, D.C. Even where the technology is already in use, experts say it doesn't have to even work properly all the time to be effective. Take China's facial recognition glasses. Police in the city of Zhengzhou have recently been using the high-tech glasses at a high-speed train station, but the glasses work only if the target stands still for several seconds. So there's no good for scanning crowds. They've been used mostly to check travelers for fake IDs. Even so, just the idea of the facial recognition glasses has been enough to get some criminals to confess. Zhan Jun, the deputy chief of police at the railway station in Zhengzhou, mentions the time his department grabbed a heroin smuggler. While questioning the suspect, Shan says, police pulled out the glasses and told the man that what he said didn't matter. The glasses could give them all the information they needed. Because he was afraid of being found out by the advanced technology, he confessed. Shan says the suspect had swallowed 70 small packets of heroin. We didn't even use any interrogation techniques, Shan says. He simply gave it all up.